Okay, basically both myself and Jonathan are field organisers. Jonathan for the East Midlands and for the North East. I cover Yorkshire and Humber, so I look after those areas. Get in touch with us or your own field organiser if there's anything that you want to follow up after this presentation. There'll be a feedback in the chat box at the very end, so please click on that and provide any feedback that you can. I will make the slides available to you on PDF at the end of this, and we'll see how it all goes. So I better kick off, I guess, and introduce myself. I'd like to find out, first of all, before I do that, if you can put in the chat box, how many of you are already Green councillors? How many of you are target candidates? So just put a yes, just put Green councillor or target candidate or interested in being a Green councillor or other, if there's another reason that you're here, if we can just get an idea of who's in the meeting. So if you could quickly put some things in the chat box now. Nosy. Well, yeah, I know. Development Ward in South Tyneside. One of yours there, Jonathan?
Yeah, I can see Sue. Hello, Sue.
Excellent. So there's a lot of people who are actually interested here, and that's great because there are a growing number of Green councillors around the country. So that is brilliant to see. I'm a standby councillor. Maybe we'll find out what that means later on. Okay, so let's move along. What we're going to cover today is what councillors can do to improve their local area and how Greens can change policy on their council to forward the political goals. We are the Green Party, we're trying to achieve green objectives, and so what is it that we can actually do on those councils to achieve that? I'll introduce myself first. I'm a councillor in Kirklees in West Yorkshire, not in Scotland, as some people believe. So I've been a councillor for 20 years, so I guess I must enjoy it. And I guess the people who vote for me must enjoy me still being their councillor. So I think I'm probably in a good position to tell you why it's a good idea. Okay, let's move along. When I was first standing for election in 1999, a whole millennium ago, I remember that somebody said, I can't remember who it was, but somebody said, oh, there's no point being a councillor. They don't have any power and can't do anything. And on the face of it, you would think, yeah, that makes sense because government's always cutting the funding for councils. We're the most centralised country in the whole of Europe. And so why would you want to be a councillor? And I guess my job here today is to prove to you that actually that is wrong, and that in fact there's stacks of stuff that we can do and some really great reasons why you might want to be a Green Party councillor. Okay, let's kick off. This was me on the front page of the Huddersfield Examiner in 1999. And as you can see there, I'm a wee bit thinner. I've got a little bit more hair. And there are my two colleagues. So I was the third councillor elected in the ward, and I was the last one to knock the last Labour councillor off. And there are my two colleagues, Graham Simpson on the left and Nick Harvey on the right. And they're welcoming me to when we became a fully Green ward in 1999. So we've won every local election in the 17 local elections that have followed since. And I suppose there's a message here which is yes target, yes win, but once you've targeted and won, stay winning and make sure that the actions and everything you do mean that you're a great councillor, and Greens just kept getting re-elected again and again. And it's not just me, I'm part of a great team. So that's 1999. Let's fast forward to 2020. And here we are, there's me, as you can see, a little balder and a little fat. Now, Graham and Nick, It's been a bit more radical for them, but in fact, we've had a change of councillors. It's Sue Lee Richards, who was elected last year, so she's been in a year, and Karen Allison, who's been in for now 8 years, and they're both taken to it like a duck to water. And so, yeah, you have some turnover sometimes. You have new people coming forward, and that's good. And you get some people who just hang around like me for such a long time. So you've targeted, you've won your election, you've done all that, and the party spends a lot of time and effort on trying to get you elected. And so the key thing really is to ensure that whatever happens next justifies all that effort that you've put in. And that's really important. So I'm going to ask you guys a question next, really, to get an idea of where you folks are coming from, which is, what are the positives about being a Green Party councillor? This allows me to have a drink of water, but it also allows me to see some of the things that you think are positive about being a Green Party councillor. Let's see. Over to you. Chat box.
Stick it in the chat, please.
Influencing local policy, good. Providing alternative narrative, being able to make changes for the better on environmental and social justice issues, a green voice.
Point there from Darlington saying that a Green councillor, 2 Green councillors in their case, influences thinking and positions across the whole council.
Yeah, I mean, it makes having a Green in the room, as has been said, it just changes the whole feel of a council. It really does.
And we do see that whenever there's a Green councillor elected, it's very common. Everybody sees, as soon as there's a Green councillor, the other parties start to try and out-green you, which obviously is a great thing.
Yeah, and there's a bit of a journey to becoming a Green councillor. I think it's not a journey that people in other parties necessarily normally have. You know, their biggest challenge is getting selected, not elected. And so because for us, a lot of the time we've gone through a journey of building trust in our local communities, that's one of the things which means that when we actually do become councillors, we're often better councillors, I think, because of that struggle to get elected. Influencing local policy, yes, I'm going to be talking a fair bit about that. In areas where there aren't many, keeps other parties committed to green policy. Yeah, there's all sorts of people who try to out-green me, I tell you. Close to the ground and able to get things done. Yeah, that's the good stuff. That's the really great stuff. Green voice. Okay, breaking the duopoly on council, and sometimes monopoly. And often, you know, we have councils such as Lambeth, where not Lambeth. It's one of the London ones, isn't it? Where there's simply one Green council and all the rest are Labour.
That's the position actually on South Tyneside until we got a Green councillor elected there.
Okay. Holding the Conservative majority to account, holding everybody to account. So I've held a few Liberal Democrats to account. They've not liked it. Okay, protecting the green belt. We'll be talking a wee bit about that and things as we go along. And this is all great. And I am really chuffed to see that everybody is incredibly idealistic. Hearing about plans and using precious time wisely to shape the outcomes in a positive way. Great. Thank you, Rachel Milne. That is all great, and all the sort of idealistic stuff that I want to hear from Greens, and it's great to hear it all. There is something else as well, and it is a positive, and that's that we get paid to do politics. Isn't that crazy? You know, the things that we believe in, the things that we care about more deeply. You're not going to become rich being a councillor, but it helps you do that. And if you've got a job or you've got employment, it can make up for some of the time that you might give to being a councillor. And For a district council, it might be £3,000, £4,000, £5,000. For a big metropolitan council, it might be £12,000 or £13,000 a year. Plus, plus you get an awful lot of support from councils a lot of the time. Sometimes it's not the case, but in terms of IT support, phones, laptops, things to enable you to do your work and do your job. And it does differ from council to council. Okay, so we've done the positives. There's now a really predictable question. What are the biggest negatives about being a Green Party councillor? Now, I know you're not negative people, but please get in the chat box and let me know what some of the downsides might be, because it helps me address those. Okay. Being in a minority. You're a bunch of loonies, frustrated. Oh, crikey, you go. All right. Accountability residence on a range of problems, struggling to convince people of the severity of problems, frustration at being a lone green voice. Okay, let's open this up a bit. Quotes, economically illiterate. Okay. Lack of support on a council, so you're on your own. Being the first, yeah, being on your own. I think one of the things we say in the Association of Green Councillors, there are no lone green councillors, and that's basically, though you may not have another green on that council, the Association of Green Councillors looks after people, and so we have mentoring support, peer advice, all those sort of things, which means that it's great to. It's great to be a green councillor, even if you're on your own. You're not really on your own because you've got a lot of support.
The support we're able to provide councillors actually goes beyond the AGC as well. So, for example, most regions have set up networks of all of their elected councillors so that they can basically talk to each other and support each other across the regions as well. And we've really tried to push that as far as we possibly can, especially since last May's elections, where we more than doubled our number of councillors.
Okay. I'll just go through a few of these. A 4-year commitment. What if workload is bigger than expected? Well, I think managing workload and looking at workload is a key part of the job, and I think it's probably fair to say that one of the key jobs that new councillors need to go through is prioritising those things which are most important. Some of that's about casework. Some of that's not trying to do everything on the council, but just focus on 1 or 2 issues where you can get some gains.
Can I just make a point on the issue of managing expectations? We try to target wards where the existing councillors are pretty useless to begin with. That's how your ward should actually have been selected in the first place. What that means is, if you can deliver maybe a quarterly newsletter when you're a councillor to tell people what you've been doing, they're absolutely bowled over with the progress you've made, regardless of what it's been, because they've never had any councillor do that before. Simply report back and tell them what they've accomplished. So actually, the process of managing expectations is not as problematic as you might think.
There's quite a few points here about being in a minority, and actually being in a minority is quite helpful at times. It does mean that you're able to be a voice. We don't have whips. We don't have people telling us how to vote, which means we could often speak our mind. And it's often the people in a majority who've got more of a problem because they're having to follow a party line. The fact that we're able to speak out on behalf of communities often means it can be easier for us if we are if we're in that position. So being bullied, yeah, that can happen and occasionally does happen, but there are ways of dealing with that. And through the Association of Green Councillors, we have supported people in the past and enabled situations to be resolved. In any walk of life, you will get that approach, you get that problem.
There's an interesting point right at the bottom there, Andrew, from Guy.
All right, let's have a look at what Guy said. Do you ever feel you have to compromise your ideals to meet wishes of the public? Actually, no, I don't. I know that sounds strange. I've never I've never really felt we've had to do that, and I can come across. I'll actually come to an example, and that's during the presentation, which will which will sort of show that. And I think sometimes the public can be ahead of even us in terms of green politics, I've found, and I'll talk a wee bit about that. In South Tyneside, the frustration of needing 6 signatures to have a resolution debated. That is a frustration, but I'd publicise a frustration and make a point of saying we need more green councillors because we can't do these things, and turn the frustration into a frustration not just for you, but for people who want proper representation on their councils. Hard work to get the message across with a strong Brexit ward. Well, I get that, and the same thing applied with me. The great thing about councils, I guess, is that we don't have much impact on the European Union, and in many ways, Brexit is a bit of a dead issue now. There's a lot more on people's minds. Okay. Is it essential to be comfortable with public speaking? No, I don't think it is necessarily. Some people are suited to it. Some people are happy doing it. Others less so. And I've got 2 colleagues, I've got to say, who don't speak much in council meetings. They're great councillors. They do really great work, but they're not necessarily people who'd want to get up and speak in a council meeting. Brilliant on casework, great on local issues and dealing with those sort of things. And we all play to our strengths. And so the good thing about being a Green councillor is that we are able to just pick areas where we can really make a difference, I think.
I think it's important as well that actually more important that you're good at one-to-one communication, sort of interpersonal communication with a very small number of people, because your success often depends on the strength of personal relationships you're creating, especially with residents on the doorstep.
Yeah, that one-to-one thing. Would you recommend not working full-time alongside being a councillor? I did work full-time as well as being a councillor for a number of years, and it worked perfectly well. I went to the council meetings, I dealt with emails, I went to evening meetings, and it worked. It worked completely fine. And I've had other colleagues who've done that as well. It's making sure that the basics get done. I think is the most important thing. That the casework gets delivered, and that the council meetings are attended, and ensuring the people, if you like, are well satisfied is a good thing. Building local party up to help support you, it will also make that easier. Okay, there's loads of comments here. I'm sure I've not quite covered everything, but I feel I ought to get on a wee bit now, and maybe we can pick up some at the end. Okay, I'll now close down the chat. So here we go. Green Party quiz question 1. Let's see, who's this? It's okay, no need to go in the chat. Right, yeah, we all know it's Caroline Lucas. So this is a 2-stage question, and here's the second question. Who's this? Now, you can put it in the chat box if you want. That's okay. All right, I'll put you out of your misery. That chap is called Pete West. And Pete West in 1996 got elected to the St. Peter's ward of the St. Peter's ward in Brighton. He was the first Green Party councillor ever elected to Brighton City Council, and he's still a councillor today and has been the mayor actually of Brighton, and he's a really nice guy. But without the straightforward message here is that being a Green Party councillor can lead to all sorts of other consequences. Pete West never wants to be an MP, I don't think, or ever had those desires. But the fact that he got elected meant that a few years later, Caroline Lucas got elected, and with all the consequences that have happened as a result of that. So that's just a clear message that you don't necessarily know where things are going to take you. So another thing that people have said to me in the past, that politics is a load of white middle-aged guys mouthing off in meetings. And I'm just going to show you a classic example. There we go. That's me in a council meeting doing my thing. But the great thing is these days, in the ward I represent, it's two women and myself. We have a council which has got a lot of Asian members. We've got a large Asian population in Huddersfield. And so it can be, we are becoming more and more diverse. But there is a lot more to being a council than council meetings. And I think some of the best stuff, and my two colleagues would certainly agree, about being a councillor is nothing to do with what happens in the council chamber. And I'm going to go through a little bit of that now. Okay, I've mentioned doing the basics. If you're planning on being a councillor, it's some of the things which need sorting out are the everyday stuff. Overflowing bins, problems with rubbish, things in the street that needs sorting out. When somebody rings you and says, oh, it's terrible what's going on, getting on the phone to the right people in the council, and you'll learn who those people are, and getting those issues and problems done and addressed. That's the basic stuff. Those are the sort of things that need doing on an everyday basis. And it isn't every day necessarily, depending on how busy your ward is, but doing the basics is the main thing. But actually, the job can become much, much more interesting than that. And here's me, Sue and Karen with the police. We were out a few months ago on a Saturday night out in Huddersfield, where they were raiding shops which are selling counterfeit cigarettes. And these were dodgy businesses that were linked with drug trafficking, people trafficking, counterfeit money, all sorts of issues and problems. And the reason that we were out with them was with the councillors who represent the town centre, but also we provided them with some money for a special sniffer dog, which went out and was sniffed out where these fags were being hidden within the shops in special hidden away containers, where they were selling them for half the price. And so we helped them, and we got a massive haul. And in fact, Karen beat the sniffer dog in finding out the cigarettes in one of the houses, which is a story she will tell on and on again. But we've had a great relationship with the police, and it's not one of the things you naturally think about with the Green Party. But we've now helped them get some e-bikes, some electric bikes, for helping them get up the hills in Huddersfield and doing their work. And so we've had some joint publicity with the local police about that. So that's been a really great story. One of the really positive things we do is help save land from development. And this was some land that the council were going to sell to put a couple of houses on, to put a couple of houses on, not social housing, but private housing. And it was valued by local people. And one day, about 10 years ago, we planted a load of fruit saplings there and created an orchard. And we made a big publicity shot of the fact that we'd made it into an orchard, which really irritated the council leader, because actually the patch of land is in his ward, just over the border with our ward. And so he was really angry about it and upset. And we won, actually. It took us 10 years. But the land was saved from development is now recognised as a community orchard. And we go there every year to commemorate saving the orchard from development. Highfields Community Orchard. Urban green space is now in the Kirklees local plan. So other projects, because we've got a small local budget that we can help people with, we can actually use it quite well. And there's an organisation in the Newsham ward called Aspire, which work with a lot of elderly, vulnerable people, or sometimes with Alzheimer's. And so we've helped fund them and fund their work, and working with local churches to do that. And that doesn't happen everywhere, but it happens. But we are able to do it because we recognise that helping vulnerable people is a priority and something that we ought to be doing and ought to be getting involved with. And that's just really positive. Okay. Working within the community, one project we got off the ground, and we always try and find one or two projects each year that we're going to really push. And this one was the 1,000 Fruit Tree Project, where we were working with communities across the wards that we represent to say, let's find verges, let's find land, let's find schools, let's work with residents associations, and let's get 1,000 fruit trees and bushes planted across the area. And we did it in the end, and that was a great project. But it linked climate change, community action, local food growing, and was just really positive. And it was such great fun to do. We met and we engaged with so many people, and people who didn't necessarily normally vote Green, but they generally do now. Okay. This was a play area that we saved from being turned into another sort of play area. And the council said was having a problem, thinking, well, you know, it costs us a lot in terms of insurance for moving play areas with swings and slides and all those sort of things, and roundabouts, and there's all sorts of liabilities associated with that. So to remove those liabilities, we'll remove the play areas and replace them with imaginative play, which was logs and rocks. And a lot of the parents were like, well, you know, my kid's not going to get that. You know, my kid's not going to understand about that. And by the way, as you can see, there's a wood at the back of our houses. They go and play in that, and there's plenty of logs and rocks in there. And so we made this point quite strongly, and this play area is no longer under threat. And we got over 100 people to turn out at that particular for the local paper. And another play area was removed by the council due to safety reasons. And we got that play area reinstated with this new natural play area, which is more than logs and rocks. You can't see all of it here. There's a lot more to it. But that cost £50,000. And the reason we were able to get that is we kept an eye on the council's budgets, and we spotted an underspend, and we got the council to establish something called a public realm fund. And all councillors in the whole of Kirklees could apply for that fund. But only 11 out of the 23 wards applied, and we were one of the ones who was successful, which shows you that, and it's probably true in your council, that over half the councillors on the council were not engaged with what was going on in the council. And so being on the ball means that you can do a really good job for your residents. How's things going, Jonathan? Anything coming up in the comments at all in the chat box?
Yeah, there's actually a little bit of a conversation going on about concern over whether or not it's acceptable to be, for example, planting fruit trees on public land. Is there a legal implication there, Andrew?
Not if it's not designated for anything else. I think if it's not designated for anything else, there's not really a problem. Obviously, we've got to talk to the council and get permission if it's public land. Oftentimes, we're looking at schools, and we're looking at the area around playing fields, which gives us loads of potential there. Need a bit of protection from footballs and such like while they're initially growing, but we spend a lot of time just making sure that we can actually do that.
Yeah, I mean, often areas of land are under threat from development, and the whole development process is really quite complex. So if anybody's got any specific questions about plots of land they're trying to rescue for whatever reason, you can email myself or Andrew, or just give us a ring, perhaps after the meeting. We can have a conversation about the specific situation, because, yeah, it can get a little bit technical.
Okay, this is going back to the thing that was mentioned about principles earlier on. And I remember back 20 odd years ago when we were first trying to get elected, the Labour Party, who were desperate to hold on to their seats before we abolished them, they said, don't vote for the Green Party, because the thing about the Green Party is they're going to put road humps absolutely everywhere. And they were right. We have, and we've done quite a bit and got quite a lot all over the place. We've not got as many as we want. Actually, we want an awful lot more. And the Labour Party misjudged the mood of the public. They misjudged the fact that people valued road safety, the fact that they wanted to live on streets where their children were less likely to be run over. And so this is one of those things where sticking to our principles and not being swayed, if you like, by some people who want to drive their car very fast down a long straight road has meant that we've actually scored pretty well there. And people see that we make every opportunity we get to put funding into into road humps and sleeping policemen, etc. We do, and that's been a project that we've done over 20 odd years now.
Andrew,
And
just want to cut into you. There's a question that's come up that I think is really quite
okay,
important. Right at the very end here. Does dealing with ordinary issues help to win Green votes?
yes, absolutely. And I would say to you this: I mean, there are people who've come to us because of things we've done in the area they represent. And they will vote, not everybody by any means, and it'd be great if I was the MP for Huddersfield now, but certainly there are people who say, well, nobody's ever done anything for me. I hear people on the national television, but you're the only people who've ever done anything for me. And so we win, we definitely win Green votes from that. Of course, there's a lot of other things that we need to do, but having people on the ground who are out there delivering from them day to day makes the politics real to them. And reputation-wise, is the sort of thing. Once we are able to have a better profile nationally, it means it'll be much easier for us to break through when we do that.
It's a vitally important point. It's absolutely the case that making sure the issues you focus on are hyper local issues. They're the things that your voters have said to you are important to them. So we do actually quite a lot of work just to keep on top of knowing what is important to our voters. We do door-to-door survey work to establish that on a regular basis so that we can always be in tune with the hyper-local issues that people are really concerned about.
Yep. Thank you. And one of the things we do, we look at the calendar of the year. We look at the things which people value. One thing that Julie, who was a councillor, and Karen Allison have done loads of work on is National Play Day. And we always organise a big event on National Play Day, working with all sorts of agencies, schools, children's services, to produce a really great day with loads of equipment and things for children to go out and play on. Going to be a bit different this year, I think, because of naturally, but that's really valuable. And we get a lot of people see us out and about doing practical local things that they and their families value, and in a way that they wouldn't see from other councillors. We also get our hands dirty, and we get involved in cleanups. We get our hands dirty in gloves, not just at the moment. And so much as we don't want to be those sort of councillors really who just get in touch with the council and say, oh, there's a problem, go and sort it out. We want to engage the community. We want to work with them. We value voluntarism. We want to get more and more people taking a pride in their area and making it part of the culture of the area to make sure that that waste and rubbish is not something that's acceptable. And so we put the signs up on the lampposts to let people know we're doing it. We get a good crowd of people along, and it builds that community spirit and helps show what the community regards as acceptable and unacceptable. And we find all sorts of interesting stuff, I tell you. So mobilising the community is a big part of our role. And this is a place in Huddersfield called Castle Hill that's up there. It's an old Iron Age hill fort with something called a Victoria Tower at the top of it. It's like Glastonbury, except much better. And all these fields you see behind us were going to be threatened with development, and this was council owned. And so we put a letter out to everybody and got them all out and mobilise them to show the strength of local feeling here. And so that's the power of a councillor to say, we are the people backing you. We're the people who are trying to make sure that your environment, people say, oh, the Greens are only interested in the environment. Well, yeah, and it's the environment around you. It's the things which matter to you every day in your everyday life. Those are really important things. And so mobilising people, really important. We did that here. We did it to try and save a bowling green. We were successful with the previous one. We weren't successful with this. But the important thing is we gave people a voice. People felt that they had done everything they possibly could, even if we didn't succeed, to try and save that bowling green. And there's nothing worse than feeling there's something you could have done. We fought a heck of a campaign to save that bowling green. And even if you don't win, if people feel that you were the ones who were backing them, if you were the ones who gave them a voice, that is so important.
A couple of questions coming up now that are similar, so I'll just read one out to you, Andrew. Uh, so people are asking questions about what level of support you get from local party members and volunteers as a councillor.
Good. We report to every meeting that we have and let people know what we're doing. People will offer support and advice. There are people who know more than we do about certain issues, be that transport policy or things like glyphosate, and so we get plenty of advice from people in that way, and so that's helpful. And in fact, we often get them to engage directly with officers and we'll say, oh, we've got this issue. This person's got a real concern and issue, and can you we'd like you to talk through it with them, like we would do with any resident. And so we will get them high level input directly to officers, and so that's really helpful. And it means that they may well become councillors of the future themselves by having that sort of high level engagement. And of course, members help us in the sort of straightforward thing of getting leaflets out and things, because we can't spend all our time putting leaflets out, but members recognise the work that we do, and that's moved us on hugely. And so, yeah, it's great to get the party involved. We have 18 people who deliver for us all the time in News and Ward, and we look after them very well. And some of them are members, some of them aren't. They're just residents who want to help us out. So one of the things we do every year as part of our year, and we've done it for 27 years, I can hardly believe it. We've run a bus service every New Year's Day for 27 years when the buses were stopped on Boxing Day, New Year's Day and Christmas Day. Boxing Day, they've been reinstated. Christmas Day, well, nobody really wanted to travel anyway. So every year we have a couple of crews, me and Karen and Sue and her husband, who go out and do a bus service, linking Newsham with Huddersfield, with the Royal Infirmary. And we run that for about 9 hours during the day, just to make sure people can get to the shops, those that are open, people can get to the sales if they're going to the sales, people can get to the football match or the odd pub that happens to be open. And that goes down really well, and it differentiates us from the other parties. And you might say, well, on New Year's Day, do you really want to do that? For us, it's just part of what we do. We just love doing it. It's part of our holiday.
The questions come up. Is there support as a councillor with childcare if you have younger children?
That depends on the council. We at our council we have maternity leave actually. For one of our cabinet members went on maternity leave, and that's part of council policy that councillors can do that. A lot of councils do offer support with childcare, but it's down to each individual council, and it's worth checking out just to see how progressive the council is, and how much it actually values people with children who actually want to take on that civic role. If they're inclusive, that's something they will provide. If they're not, that's something you can campaign for. So I'm going to focus now on a particular issue that we had, and it's really looking at how to get things done. This is the Village of Armitage Bridge, which is in our patch. A very narrow road, old Victorian village, and lorries frequently meeting each other, get jackknifed, find it hard to get out, all sorts of issues and things. So how do you get these things sorted as a councillor? Well, you can send an email, but often the emails are not necessarily ignored, but they can get a fairly standard response. A phone call puts somebody on the spot a little bit more as a local officer. You can say, look, there's a real problem here, and you get the feeling across about why it is such an important issue. A petition can engage local people, and you can put that to the council to show the strength of local feeling. But again, petitions can just be they can be ignored. But there's still value in trying to engage people and take things on a stage. You can ask questions at full council. Why isn't anybody helping us on this issue? Why is nobody trying to sort out traffic calming here? getting the local paper involved to raise it up the political agenda. The thing that got us a weight limit on this stretch of road, chubby councillor with next to weight limit sign, but one of the things which that got us in the end was actually going out on site with a council officer and spending a couple of hours with her, watching all the issues and problems that came. And so she went, "Oh, right, I get it now. I understand what you're trying to say." And that she would not have come out on site if I wasn't a councillor. The fact that I was a councillor meant that she was willing to spend an hour or two of her time to actually observe the problem, and that was what resolved that issue in the end. And that's part of the power of being a councillor. Okay, helping all constituents. We naturally think that that we only help one sort of mammal, but below Castle Hill, which you saw earlier
Andrew,
on.
can I briefly
Yep.
cut in? I
Yes.
know you're just launching into something very interesting.
Fine.
Just
Yep.
hold your thought, because a good question to come up. As a councillor, isn't there kickback from the council? Aren't you petitioning against yourself as a member of the council? I think this goes to the point you made earlier, in that you're a minority as a group on the council, so you can do those. You can petition. You can, have a voice, in a sense that if you were a majority, you'd have control over the council. So really, you're in control. If you're not in control, it puts you in a position of being able to petition, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, if you're running the council, and the council, for instance, was trying to build on an area of land that people value, well, you probably wouldn't be a green council, would it? So a lot of the time we're standing up for communities, and we're standing up for local issues, and sometimes that's against council policy, and sometimes it's not necessarily a problem. You are pointing out something which doesn't fit well, an issue that officers haven't thought of, that has value, or the strength of local feeling is not appreciated. So you're a conduit towards getting those issues sorted and solved. It's not necessarily confrontational. Sometimes it is, but oftentimes it isn't. But yeah, okay. So helping all constituents. These are cows, obviously, at Stirling Community Farm, Yorkshire Wildlife Trust. And there was a real problem here. People were launching flying lanterns from Castle Hill up there. They were dropping into the grass, which was chopped up as feed for the animals, and they had terrible deaths, basically, from all the metal parts from the flying lanterns. And so we produced a motion to the council which said that on council land, we would ban the use of flying lanterns, balloons being set off, and fireworks indeed, because we had fireworks that have set fire to large stretches of land. And so we put that forward, and we actually got the backing of the National Farmers Union when we did that. And you don't often hear the Green Party being backed by the National Farmers Union, but we did that, and there is now a ban. It took the council a while to do it, but we got that done, and we're dead chuffed about that. And we have some happy cows. We've also helped get solar power on community buildings. We do that every possible opportunity we can. One reason it's a good thing to do, but it's a very visible demonstration that people are in an area where the Green Party is active, that there are so many buildings which have got solar panels on them. This is Newsham South Baptist Church, which basically uses it for a whole host of community events, and they kept their rent down on the basis that their energy costs were lower as a result of all the things that we helped them do, and that rent went to a lot of the organizations who use that building, so it helped those organizations. So I've talked about all that. I just want to finish off, and this is not, I could go on for quite a while, but I just want to talk about some of the big stuff, achieving Green Party policy objectives, not just doing the ward things, but looking a bit beyond that to the whole council and maybe other things as well. So one of the things we did do is, before the government changed the policy on the feed-in tariff for solar energy, we finally got the council to understand and agree that they could put solar power on council houses and do it at net zero cost to the council. We made the argument for several years, and in the end we got 600 council houses fitted with solar panels, generally for people on low incomes. And it's great that people on the lowest incomes were benefiting from green technology. We have a couple of estates in the ward I represent which are completely plastered with solar panels, and you know, it's great hearing pensioners say, "Oh, I put the washing machine on because the sun's shining," and they recognise the fact they're engaging with the nearest star and making sure that that's their energy supplier. And that is such a beautiful thing to hear, you know, people engaging with the weather again, and that's marvelous. And so that was something we did. We banned fracking in Kirklees. Well, I say we banned fracking. What we did was, in our local plan, we put forward a policy. There is political group Green Party, our suggestion, and our policy was, where a proposal for fracking demonstrates it will have a net zero impact on climate change. This is in line with ongoing UK government commitments in the 2008 Climate Change Act and as signatories to the COP21 Paris Agreement. So basically, we said that any fracking planning application would have to demonstrate how it has net zero impact on climate change. Now, can you imagine a fracking application going in where it would demonstrate that? I think it'd be a very interesting application to see. And it was effectively, it was a ban. We've never had to use it. And one Tory said, thing is about this, Councillor Cooper, is you don't understand. He says, you don't understand, Councillor Cooper, that there's hardly any places in Kirklees where you can do fracking because of the geology. You don't understand, Councillor Cooper. And I said, you know what? I said, you're right. But the fact that we've actually done this means that we have produced a policy which every council in the country can refer to in its own local plan. And so the things that we do in our own councils can have impacts much wider than our own council areas. And I know in a number of places that policy has been used, and they've tried to get that adopted. Of course, fracking's in a different position now. We'll see where we go with that because we have the moratorium. But that policy stands, and we will fight fracking tooth and nail. Okay, this is one of our biggest ever successes when we had balance of power on the council. And this is what the difference of green votes make when you do have balance of power. This was in 2007. We had an amendment to the budget of Kirklees. We had a £20 million scheme, capital scheme. It's a 4-year scheme, and we gave free insulation to everybody, private householders, loft insulation, cavity wall insulation. We did over 50,000 homes were insulated. And it was the biggest insulation scheme anywhere in the country, and it won the Ashton Award for Sustainable Energy for doing that. And so we were really quite chuffed about that, and everybody tried to take credit for it, even the Labour Party who voted against it. But we did it in the end, and so that was just great, and we were really chuffed that we were able to do that. Okay, and another thing is that the fact that you are a councillor, the fact that you've actually achieved that position, that people have voted for you and put you in that position, means that people want to hear what you've got to say. And you will get asked to speak on regional radio. The local papers will ring you up and ask for your opinion about a load of issues. You might get onto regional television as well. And so, and you could be talking about a whole host of issues and giving a voice to green politics, which simply would not be there if you hadn't actually been elected as a councillor. And you could well be talking about national issues and national context. You could be talking about the coronavirus crisis and how it's affecting your community. You're talking about all those things. And so giving that voice is really important. And you get, this is a mill that went up in flames and appeared on regional television behind us. And so there I am saying some things there about that. But if you're lucky, it can go a wee bit further than that. And I was certainly lucky. I got appointed to the EU Committee of the Regions when we were members of the European Union. And as members of the European Union Committee of the Regions, because of that, which is the body which represents local and regional government in the European Union, From there, I went on the EU delegation to the COP, the UN climate change talks. I went to 3 or 4 of those, had a direct input into the European Union's submission to the climate change agreement. And partly as a result of that, I'm not going to take full credit by any means, we got a success at those talks. And this is the wording, and it says, this went in the final UN declaration at the end of COP24, and it says that when preparing nationally determined contributions, which are what governments say they're going to do about climate change, governments should consult on their implementation plans through domestic institutional arrangements, public participation, engagement with local communities. And what that means is councils. And so that has a direct input back. And so one of the things I'm going to be doing now and quite shortly is going to national governments and saying, you're producing your plans to deal with climate change and you have not consulted local councils. You are breaking a UN agreement that you have signed. And that is, you think about where you start from. You think about potholes and dog poo and all those things that you deal with. And it just says that you don't know where your own councillor journey might take you and what you might well be able to do. And I go right back to the beginning of the presentation where it said, where they said, you know, councillors have got no power and they can't do anything. We can do stacks and stacks. And I think as green councillors, we can do a heck of a lot more because we're not constrained by party machines. We have the imagination a lot of the time to see a different future. And so, yeah, become a green councillor. And if there are any questions, happy to answer them. Hello. So what have we got in the chat box, Jonathan?
Quite a bit coming up just as you were finishing, actually. People interested in getting engaged with housing policy and also understanding how to do something about housing applications in their own local area.
Right.
Do you want to say a few words on that?
Housing applications, we are very constrained, I think, by planning law. And so a lot of the time, if you're objecting to a planning application, you've got to object on planning grounds. So if it's a particular single application, you might have to look at what it is. Is it visually intrusive? Is it bad for the highways? There's lots of reasons why you might oppose a planning application. Important, I think, really is ensuring that your local plan is as good as it possibly can be at an early stage. If you are at a stage in the local plan process to influence it while it's being put together. So that's pretty important.
We've got, I think, quite an important "where do we go next" question, Andrew.
Okay.
If we're interested in taking this forwards.
Right, okay, so certainly, does that mean you want to be a councillor? Well, that is marvellous, because there's no nobler profession that I can think of. And so, yeah, I mean, maybe become a member of the Association of Green Councillors. You don't have to be a councillor to be a member of the Association of Green Councillors, but they will let you know on an ongoing basis about those things and provide you with support for that.
Just cut in there. The Association of Green Councillors will be able to provide you with advice as well on all the issues that councillors might have to face. Yep. You can essentially network with all the members of that association who will have experienced just about every problem you'll ever come up against. So it really is invaluable as a network organisation.
So, and of course, you might well want to speak to myself or Jonathan or your own field organiser about how to become a councillor and to become a target candidate, and of course working through your own local party. And we have so many more councillors than we had a few years ago. When I got elected 20 odd years ago, I think there was about 30 or 40 of us around the country. There's now several hundred, isn't there, that we've got.
Just make a quick point. Somebody has said, will links go for the Association of Green Councillors go out after this. Folks, if you just do a Google search on Association of Green Councillors, you'll find their website and everything you could possibly need in terms of what they have to offer.
Yeah.
Very easy.
One of the things they do offer for people who are councillors is peer support as well. So people who've been councillors a long time, not just me, other people as well, who are able to offer support to people who become new councillors. So, like we say, we don't say anybody is a lone councillor. We certainly want to ensure that everybody gets the support that they need.
And just in case you missed it, if you want to become a councillor, you want to talk more in specific detail, contact your field organiser for your region. That's, I think, probably the best way forward. You could also talk to your local party, but they themselves might not have councillors, and you might be the first person in your local party to express an interest in taking that step. It's a vital step. It really should be the purpose of a local party, projecting people into office. But they might not have that experience, so you can guarantee that you'll get the right advice if you phone your regional field organiser.
Andrew, what made you become a councillor initially? I couldn't find anybody else. Is the straight answer? It really is. It really was that. I was the person who organised the elections. I was the person who organised the campaigns, and there was somebody who put themselves forward. But to be honest, no. And so I was faced with a position where I just had to, and so I left my job working for Kirklees and went for the neighbouring council, and then stood for council and became a councillor. There's a longer story than that, but that's the essence of it. Also, when working full time, did you have to take time off for council work? Well, I work for a council, and so councils, if you work for a council, they're sort of almost obligated to recognise public duty. But the thing you can do with your employer, and a lot of larger employers certainly may well have a corporate social responsibility policy. And you can actually say, well, you know, do you value public office? Are these one of the things that you would give time off for? And some employers do, and some employers would say, yeah, that's one of the things we'd like our employees to be doing. Some actually offer time off for volunteering, so they may well regard this in a similar way, and they might like the idea of employees of theirs getting involved in public duty and maybe make a thing of it. The fact that they do that, and as a selling point for their organisation as being a good employer. You are unusually energetic. Yeah, this tubby, I don't know. But yeah, but no, there's stacks of. I mean, I think there's so many people who are actually enjoying the work of being green councillors now. I come across a lot of people around the country, and they're really taking to it, and it's one of the things that they found really enriching. So yeah, great. Okay. How much time do you spend being a counsellor? Let's have a think. I used to work full time, and that was fine. I hadn't got any, and I did the work there. I now work for the Green Party as a field organiser for 3 days a week, and so there's a certain amount of. They're quite an understanding employer, actually, as regards my council work. Who'd have thought it? But they are. So that's good, and the thing is about it, a lot of the time, particularly at the moment, you make your own hours to a large extent, and you're managing your own time apart from when you've actually got council meetings, and so you can block off certain amounts of time to make that family time. Good job, my wife's not here to contradict me, but you know so making that time for yourself is really important. And making sure you don't overwork, and that you say, nah, Saturday night's mine. You know, that we don't do Green Party Saturday night or whatever it happens to be. But just keep in control. Be good with time management. How much is the allowance for being a councillor? Now that does vary from council to council. It will there'll be the allowances scheme will be on your local council for the basic for Kirklees, which is a large metropolitan authority where we represent 14,000 people. we get £13,000 a year as basic. You might get additional, another 4 or 5 for additional duties if you're the leader of your group, or if you're a chair of a panel, a scrutiny panel, or if you're a cabinet member, some Greens are, then you may get more for that. If you're a small district council, I've heard it goes £3,000, £4,000, £5,000, that sort as basic. So it varies, but just look at your own local council. County councils are bigger councils and generally give bigger allowances as well.
I just want to let you know the time is 7:33. What time were you to finish?
I think it was 7:30.
Because we've gone slightly over, but that's fine. Lots of people are still here. Some people have had to drift away at 7:30. Folks, I'd really appreciate it if you could fill in a feedback form in relation to this session. Once we close the session down, I'm about to post a link into the chat. So if you could copy that link or just click on it, and it will take you to the feedback form, as in terms of that being the last thing we do, so that you can give us feedback. It's important for us to get an understanding as to how people appreciate our sessions and whether or not we can improve them in any way.
Okay. Oh, 7:45, so happy to hang on, it says here, as it's closed down. Is there a fundamental difference between being a local councillor and a county councillor? Well, local as in district councillor. Yeah, there's different responsibilities. County has responsibility for education, libraries. I'm not a county councillor myself, but roads, I think, larger roads, counties have. And district is usually things like planning, waste, dealing with waste and things. And so those have different responsibilities. If you are if you're a metropolitan or a unitary councillor, then things like London boroughs, metropolitan councils, other unitary city councils sometimes, then you have responsibility for everything.
Somebody's raised a point about whether you have to live in the ward you represent, which is
No, you don't, and I don't. And every now and again, the Labour Party, when they're putting out a leaflet, they'll say, "Don't vote for Andrew Cooper because he doesn't live in the ward." He doesn't live in the ward, He doesn't live they forget the fact that their candidate doesn't live in the ward, but they say, no, he doesn't live in the ward. And so it'll come up on a doorstep, and I'll say, "All right, so they've said I don't live in the ward." "Yeah, you don't live in the ward." I'll say, "I know that, you know that, but my wife thinks that I do live in the ward because I'm never at home." And so the point I make, the thing is, if people know you're doing the work, if people know that you're out there and involved in the community, doing all the things that benefit them, then they will overlook the fact that somehow or other you don't live in the ward. And some people who live in the ward could actually make pretty not that good councillors. And so I think, yes, it is an advantage and it's a good thing to say, but you've got to do all the other stuff as well.
I'm going to take a question that's just come up again, which I think is really important. Is there an easy way to identify wards where the current councillor isn't very engaged? That's a really key point, because actually that's how we pick our target ward in the first place. That's the #1 criteria that translates to the likelihood of our election success.
Yeah.
Having a councillor who isn't very engaged, doesn't have a very high profile in the community, and makes the assumption that they're just going to get elected because they're Labour or Conservative, and that's always been the case. So there's a high level of complacency there. We can find those wards, and we do it actually by doing some very basic door-to-door survey work, where we ask questions like, do you know your councillor's name? Have you ever had a newsletter from your councillor? Do they ever visit you? Or is it regularly or just before elections? Sort of questions that everyone would know the answer to about if they live in that ward, but really help us understand the profile of their existing councillors. And actually, we do that survey work to pick the target ward. So you don't just go for the place you live, you go for the place where you're most likely to win. And that place really is where there's an existing complacent councillor. So, and I really do strongly recommend that you put the time into getting that decision, that choice right in the first place, because actually you can get that choice wrong. You can end up competing in a ward where there is a hard-working councillor from another party, and that makes it much harder for you to win an election. So time spent making a good ward choice right at the onset is really valuable, really worthwhile thing to do.
That's great. Thanks, Jonathan. A really good question here from Richard. I have little to do with council. I have a little to do with councils. How do you cope with the bureaucracy and slowness to react? I think the answer to that is really about shining a light on it and making sure that one of the things that we're keen to do is campaign about things where the council is not doing as well as it should be doing, and that actually making sure that they're exposed in terms of media, that they're made accountable, and that the councillors who are responsible for that area of service, the cabinet members often, are the ones who are made to account. You could go to a council meeting as a member of the public, hopefully, and ask a question, say, how come this hasn't been sorted out? I've sent 3 or 4 emails. I've rung them up on several occasions. So shine a light on it, and that's one of the things which may well help get you elected in the first place. Do the Green Party offer job shadowing with Green councillors? I think certainly have a look at your local party. If your local party's got somebody there, I do work placements with politics students, so that they come and spend some time with me, and I try and make it 50% leafleting with me, which is all part of getting to know what it's all about. Saves me a job, but also the interesting stuff as well, the meetings, the scrutiny, sitting in on things, getting an idea about what goes on. And I think that's legitimate for students. Obviously, as a councillor, you get a certain amount of access that other people don't have, and so it's just ensuring what is legitimate to involve somebody else with and what isn't, and when you can involve somebody in a meeting and when you can't. Of course, meetings are public a lot of the time, not at the moment as much, but so people can attend those and see what goes on. But what I would say to you is that if all you're doing is looking at council meetings to get an idea about what a council has done, you are just looking at the tip of an iceberg. There is so much more that councils can do, and so much more that it's valuable to do than going to council meetings. So shadowing could be very much about doing stuff in the community, which I'm sure there's loads of opportunities for access to. Yeah, council staff seem very attentive to councillors when councillors are asking questions on locals' behalf. Yeah, and it shouldn't be that way, should it? We all know that. We all know that basically the job should get done. It shouldn't have to be somebody who's got a councillor title before the name. That shouldn't be necessary. People should just get a good service, and they shouldn't try and have to bypass a poor service by coming to you. But it sometimes works that way, and sometimes that's about government cuts, which means that services are poor. And sometimes you've got to ensure that you're not helping somebody jump the queue, but you're dealing with legitimate concerns. And so what we can't do is basically help somebody unfairly. If somebody's not getting a good service and they should get a good service, well, that's completely legitimate. And one of the things I do is try and find ways for people to help themselves if they don't know what to do. And so giving them the know-how, this is the person you get in touch with, this is what you do, have a bash. If it doesn't work, come back to me. And then it gives it more legitimacy for me to get involved, because I can then go, look, they've tried the proper way, and it ain't worked. So here I am. Does your council stream meetings online, and how valuable is this to residents? Yes, they do, and it was a Green Party motion to the council which got us webcasting, which was successful. We were pleased about that, and yes, it does. How valuable is it? Well, it provides a record, and I think that's valuable. And sometimes council meetings, let's face it, can be pretty darn tedious. But I think there's a real job for us to do where interesting things are coming up on the agenda, when there are things which people might find of interest, that we really publicise that and get people involved and interested in that. Peter, I would definitely advise people to attend public council meetings, be prepared and alarmed at how poor the councillors are. Yeah, don't actually necessarily believe that somehow or other these people who've somehow got elected by happening to be members of the Labour Party, well, for me it's the Labour Party. If you replace it with the Conservative Party, I'm sure, who just happen to be members of those parties, where you put as they say, a monkey with a red or a blue rosette up and they get elected, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're any good at their job. They're just people who happen to be in those parties. So, you know, for us to get elected, we've generally had to have gone through, have gained people's trust and done a good job.
There's a point.
Councillors.
There's a point there. I've sometimes found that whilst being attentive to councillors, the officers sometimes seem to ensure that little changes. I absolutely hear where you're coming from there, Richard. Some officers can be tremendously stubborn, but by and large, those you find that in councils that are dominated by ineffectual councillors who are not actually don't have the knowledge and skills or actually the desire to make change happen. And in those situations, like my own council, Durham County Council, is very much typical of that sort of situation where officers dominate. But that tends to change when councillors hold them to account.
A colleague of mine, Graham Simpson, who you saw on one of the earlier slides, he had an issue which it was I think it was a road which has just been really rubbish for a long time, and he'd just potholes and everything all over it, which is bad for cyclists, it is for car drivers, even worse. And he went and had a picture taken of himself with a first birthday card from when he first actually put the complaint in about the road, and sent that off to the Highways Department, which I don't think, I wouldn't necessarily advise that, but it certainly got it attention and things. So one of our jobs is to actually make sure that things which people don't want to be exposed is exposed, and get a better result as a result of that. Yes, Mr. Councillor, a new TV series, perhaps. Well, okay, yeah.
Do you want to start winding things up, Andrew? It's 1:45 now.
Okay, well, thanks everybody. Please become councillors, because it's a great thing to do. There's the feedback form here. Please complete it. Good stuff, bad stuff, whatever you want to do. I'm andrew.cooper@greenparty.org.uk. So pretty easy if there's any more questions that you might have. So more than happy to help. Get in touch with your field organiser if you want to get involved in getting elected yourself or working with them. And you know, I hope your councillor journey, if you become councillors, is as interesting and exciting as mine and some of my colleagues have been. So enjoy. And it's been great. Thanks for all the questions. I hope I managed to deal with most of them. But there we go. Okay.
Thank you very much, everyone.